alternative ways. So we're getting baited either way. And that's when I had biosecurity officers, 10 crew members, 2 with body cams, threatened me with a $15,000 fine, and they said they would call the police to restrain me if I did not let them on my property. This is not a compromise, this is an ultimatum. And this is why people are angry. This is private property. I have 21 fruit trees. My cat had emergency surgery, and my daughter and I now have medical conditions. My next door neighbor's chicken was paralyzed. And so all these stories, I know safe and effective, are being ignored. This is anecdotal evidence we're coming to you and saying, hey, there's something wrong here.
Darling, it is very serious and it's not good. So now they're over our property spraying. My husband is down the back. We have not consented. We've also sent emails to the aviation company to state that we do not consent to low-flying vehicles over our property. Yet here we are. They're now flying over the boundary of our land and our neighbours. They're within 150 metres of our neighbour's house, which was not supposed to be the case. And they've sprayed my land when I've explicitly said I do not consent. I have livestock, children. They're now spraying over the South Pine River. They've sprayed over the South Pine River now. So that has gone directly into a water source, despite the fact that the regulation and guidelines says that it is dangerous to aquatic life and should not be used near waterways. And they have sprayed it directly over the South Pine River.
I don't even understand how they can afford it. And where, obviously it's hiring a lot of people if they're able to...
Over 1,000 people are employed by it.
To go farm to farm and spray everything in sight. It's incredible.
Yeah.
And all these people's livelihoods are directly tied to this program. And I guess in some ways they have an incentive to allow it to continue or see it continues.
I've actually had threats of my life on this program trying to stop it. People have told me to put a gun to my head and pull the trigger. People, anonymous people, like on social media and that sort of stuff. Really bizarre. Because I'm just asking questions. I'm not even being nasty about it. And none of my correspondence has got any bit of nastiness in it. I'm just trying to get to the bottom of what's going on.
It'd be interesting to see the money trail as to where it goes back to, where the chemicals are being bought from, who's profiting out of all of this, because there's always someone making money.
Yeah.
It seems
That's
to
right,
me that the program is completely run by cowboys. It doesn't have any basis in science.
In November last year, and 30th of November last year, we actually euthanized our first calf. We've never lost a calf before. And it was late at night or something, and we've never had any problems. And what's happened, we just sort of perished in the paddock, buried it in our backyard and moved on next to the horse, and because we were burying the horse at the same time, and it was all very traumatic and very sad. But less than 6 months later, another calf was born with deformity. Dr. Joshua King in the University of Florida, he's actually wrote an open letter saying that eradication is impossible and it's not anecdotal, because these ants were first discovered in 2001 at the Port of Brisbane, but at that time they'd done a survey and they estimated at least 15 years earlier. So they were here probably in the 1980s, somewhere like that. So they've been here for quite some time, 40, 50 years, and over 830,000 hectares, plus with outlying communities that they're trying to do, it's impossible to eradicate them. So
And of
We've got
course, today it's fire ants, and then tomorrow it could be some other virus.
prophylactic spraying of growth regulators. So they call it growth regulators to minimise the. They don't like you to use the word poison. They want to try and minimise the word poison. So it's an insect growth regulator. And in fact, on the ABC, they say we're misinforming people by calling it a poison, but it is insecticide, which is part of a pesticide, which is a category of poison. So what they're doing is not only not working, but it's helping fire ants spread quicker. This is the problem. It's just mind-boggling. But there's lots of
But then they can spray more chemicals, Trevor.
Yeah.
If it spreads, there's
Yeah.
no accountability whatsoever. For example,
Yeah.
your area should be like the canary in the coal mine.
Yeah.
And not only when the department got a report from you, everything alarm bells should have gone off. This is a normal thing.
And that's what I would have thought would have happened. And I'm just so surprised that I've come across so much hate and so much opposition and so much. I would have thought that. That's what I thought. I got to do. Let's get to the bottom of this. We'll stop this and work it out. And maybe, but it's just been complete opposite. Full steam ahead, regardless. Push forward.
No, we don't know the half-life of it. We don't know how long it persists in the environment. They just keep on spraying it. Dr. Joshua
And there's
King
no bioaccumulation, information on it at all. It doesn't know how long it stays in our body. They don't know how long the muscle tissues stay in there. They haven't done no research on it. It says
and this is probably why you didn't notice early on in the property, because it had just started the program and it's accumulating in your soil, and then eventually the calves are getting problems, and then what they'll say is, oh well, there's some genetic problem with your calves.
That's right, and that's what, and they don't even say that. They're just deluded and say, oh, it could be this, it could be that, might be this or might be that.
Well, some people could believe it, eventually, because what happens is the land gets more and more toxic, and then the animals all of a sudden exhibit signs of deformity and death, and then they think, oh, there's been a mutation in the genes, and that's
right.
the issue.
I
think you sent the letter with Dr. Joshua King, and he actually, I thought this was an interesting point. He actually talked about non-toxic management methods.
I realise now that there's no practical outcomes for me to providing information to the adverse experience reporting program. There's none at all, because they're not stopping the program. They're just using information against me, in my case, and they're not going to provide me any information that will benefit to me. You know what I mean? So they're just like creating evidence to use against me without providing any information that might be able to use myself. So, they're complicit in the damaging behaviour, doing it.
All of this damage, and no one's going to be paying out because they're not going to give you any information. And any time you do ask for it, they're not going to incriminate themselves, and they'll just try and blame everything on, next they'll just tell you it's your mental health, that it's you're imagining the whole thing.
So we're trying to get people educated that say within the Biosecurity Act, you can say no, there is a reasonable excuse, and there's plenty of them. There's plenty of reasonable excuses. Even that one about killing the native ants is going to make it more possible for fire ants to invade my property. That's a reasonable excuse. But many people think that not having fire ants on your property is a reasonable excuse not to spray for fire ants, and I believe that's a reasonable excuse as well.
And here people need to really realize that the effects of this is going to be seen in 3, 5, 10, 20 years time.
There was some dogs.
The human health side.
There was some dogs and some pets that had instant effects. So some animals and pets, and the vet explains that walking on the chemicals on a recently treated park, and they lick their paws or whatever, and there's videos of it, and I've got the recordings there of vets saying that causes poisoning, and it has killed a few animals, but they do show signs of spewing up and all the poison signs, and they get the blood test or whatever and shows increase in whatever it is, and there's a vet that talks about that as well. So you can get instant, and it's like anything. It's like not everyone's allergic to peanut butter. Some people have bigger effects than other things. It's the same with the animals and with the environment. So the effects of these poisons are determined by the environment, the weather, the susceptibility of the animals in the distribution zone, the exposures, the amount of exposures, the durations of exposure. So many variables.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Health Alliance Australia's podcast. My name is Jeannie Rose Angeratha, and I'll be your host today. Health Alliance Australia is a leading health advocacy organisation dedicated to honouring bodily autonomy and well-informed health choices. Today, we are diverting from our current format of alternative health modalities and discussing a very important topic that is unfolding right now in Australia. That is the ecological and health disaster that is being done under the auspices or the pretense of fire ant eradication. We have with us today Trevor Hold from Queensland, and he's going to tell us what's happening on the ground where this highly toxic chemical is being sprayed on large areas of Queensland, including food growing areas, private property, and this is all being done by helicopter, drones, and on foot. And areas that don't even have fire ants are being sprayed multiple times. And the poison has been found in waterways, animals have died. There is no consent required by the landowners. Public meetings have been held. Experts have spoken out against it, but there seems to be this coordinated government agenda to continue spraying this until well into 2026. So welcome, Trevor. Thanks for coming today and for your time. If you just want to introduce yourself and how you got into this whole, what you call mess, or
Thanks for having me and giving me the opportunity to tell my story. My name is Trevor Hold. I identify as an entrepreneur. I've been living here on the farm for over 10 years now. I have a small herd of Galloway cattle and a horse program. Our cattle are not for meat purposes. We use them for mental health reasons and sell them as pets and liaise with people with them and spend time with them to create better outcomes overall in their mental health. In addition, we've got some banana trees and some other specialty fruit and that on a small acreage farm here in the Lockyer Valley. So just want to explain a little bit about where we come from. So prior to this operation, as an entrepreneur, I was doing 3D design CAD work, and my partner, just a little bit of history, she got diagnosed with ovarian cancer, and I said to her, what do you want to do? We thought that was, again, it's pretty bleak diagnosis to get. Anyway, she said she enjoyed her childhood living on the farm with a few cows and that with her uncles and that's what she wanted to try and do. So I sold up my operations. I had 2 blocks of dirt, 2 blocks of land, industrial land in Oakey, just west of Toowoomba, and stopped my operations. I was doing landfill reduction programs throughout southeast Queensland and 3D design services contracts as well. So I had 5 trucks running around the place and doing international projects, flying overseas. I was doing projects in New Zealand, Armenia, Papua New Guinea, different projects around the world. And but anyway, so I sold up everything that we're doing to get this farm here to be for Jody, and we bought the first few cows, and she'd done a lot of research into these cows. They're fully registered. And she picked them because of their, health and ease of management and that sort of stuff. We didn't want any problems anyway. And that's one of the reasons that we developed this farm. So originally it was nothing to do with a business incentive. It was more like an emotional decision that we made to invest in this farm. So the cattle are very special to us. It's not just a cow, and people like to minimise the impact of that, but they were very specifically selected and very specifically bought. Now, fortunately, my partner overcome her ovarian cancer diagnosis, and she's been free of cancer now for a while. She had a full hysterectomy, had a few other issues with fusing of organs and this and that, so she's still got some problems there. But in relation to the farm, so we sold up everything, and I had to find a way of moving forward. So I took on a 2-year defence contract to help pay for this and transition into this thing. So I was working on a project Overlander 121 and getting in money and trying to work out ways to to make this farm financially secure while we, work through these issues. And eventually we've grown our herd, and we're selling holder training of pets and selling them as pets, for small acreage farms and that sort of stuff. And we're having a lot of success with the cattle. So then we started in the horse program. So we've got some horses as well now. So trying to turn it into commercial operations. And about 5 years ago it was that I started my mental health training to try and utilise the cattle in a mental health space and try and diversify operations and that sort of stuff. And that's the journey that I've been on now for the last 5 years. I've done Cert 4 in mental health. I've done a diploma in counselling, and I'm an accredited qualified counsellor registered with the Australian Counselling Association. And I'm in the final year of my Bachelor of Psychology. So that's where I am. So in 2019, I've since found out I never really monitored what was going on. So it was before COVID. Helicopters were coming over our land. We weren't notified. We had some junk mail put in. It wasn't addressed to us in our letterbox, but I didn't bother reading it or whatever. I didn't know anything about it. There was no real education program. And the first I sort of got involved with the program was when there was literally a helicopter just flying above our property in 2019, scaring and harming my cattle and my horses. In particular, horses are quite flighty and that sort of stuff, and the helicopter noises are very loud, and there's a lot of wind and it's stirring them up. And we had some injury to some animals getting caught up in some barbed wire fences. We haven't really got the fences for that sort of activity for these animals, So, and I don't remember exactly the circumstances, whether I ran up on the street and yelled and screamed at someone or whether I rung someone up on the phone. I don't really remember it, but I remember I was very angry and very stressed out at the time, trying to get this helicopter to stop annoying my animals. So I didn't really know what was going on and didn't really know about it. I think we went through the bin or went through the cupboard or something and found a pamphlet and maybe found a number, or maybe there was someone at the front. I don't really recall, but that was my first encounter with the fire ant program. I didn't even know what the helicopter was doing. I didn't know anything about fire ants. I've lived in Southeast Queensland my whole life, never even heard of fire ants, and even now. So I think from that, we learned. My missus works up the road at the local Woolworths here, and we learnt that one of the guys that was talking to Jody there, he actually got a job as one of the area coordinators. So she knew him personally from there, and she talked to him, like as a associate, I suppose, or just as a general person that used to come in and talk to her at work. Anyway, and and he's probably not a bad bloke. I met him a few times, but I said to him, we can't have this helicopter flying over our property. It's harassing, my stock. It's unacceptable. Anyway, the next time he said, "Oh, that's all right, no problems." And I'm in and out, so not really keeping track on what they're doing. I don't know. I'm in and out. I'm not worried about it, and I just assume that there's an emergency and they're trying to deal with it, and that's what they're doing. We've never had fire ants on this property. Never had fire ants even around this area. Like, I thought maybe there was some fire ants in a paddock, up the road on the farm or next door, or there must have been something fire ants close or something going on that's nearby, but I didn't know too much, and I didn't look into it. I just accepted, they're safe and effective. It's no problems and all the rest of it, and just accepted, their explanations. And I was more concerned about the impacts it was having on my cattle and freaking out my animals. That's what I was concerned about. So the next time they come, when I was there, and they come with motorbikes, quad bikes, and they had like spray bars on the back or whatever, and they were hooning up and down. It was in the middle of the drought, and they're distributing bait, fire ant that's safe and effective. And again, I wasn't really keeping an eye on them, and I didn't really know. But I know the motorbike was running up and down the dry dam. It was dry, and he had his spray bar going, and fire ant bait was everywhere. That's what they're doing, and they're telling me it's no problem. It doesn't do anything. It's safe and effective, and and whatever. But again, that was harassing my stock and that. And I said, look, the motorbike's no better than then the, you know, helicopter. I says, you can't do that. And they said, I got no choice. You got to do it. This is what we got to do, you know. Anyway. And I said, well, that's no good. You have to do it by hand then. And then next time they come, there was like 20 or 30 guys in a big row, a metre apart or whatever, and they had these little hand spreaders, and they were walking up and down my thing in their high fluoro vests. And that was just as bad. There's noisy people walking up and down, you know, stressing out the horses and cows in their high fluoro vests.
And you've got no fire ants.
And we've got no fire ants. No fire ants. Never been any fire ants. But they call it prophylactic treatment. So we'll get through that. But so there's no fire anyway. And I just didn't like them coming. It's invasion of privacy. It was harassing my stock. And they're doing this 3 times a year, you know what I mean? And that's the problem. At start, I just thought, oh, it's just this once or whatever, and they'll go away and leave me. But then they come back, and then they come back, and then they come back the next year and come back again. So it's like 3 times every year. And then, so in November last year, and 30th of November last year, we actually euthanized our first calf. We've never lost a calf before. And it was late at night or something, and we've never had any problems. And what's happened, what's just sort of perished in the paddock. My missus was there and seen it was down, and she went and spent the last few hours with it, sort of thing. And we ended up just taking it to the vet and getting it euthanized. So before it was euthanized, we'd done the test to see if it was bitten by a snake, and done this test and that test to see, you know, but it was pretty bad by the time we got it to the vet, because it was a few hours after she told me there was a problem before I got home and picked it up or whatever. And the vet's freezer was full at the time, so we couldn't keep it overnight, take it for a necropsy, they call it, not an autopsy for an animal, they call it necropsy. But so we just buried it in our backyard. And at the time, like we said, we were living our life. We had a big gypsy cob that we were putting down with cancer. It was an old fella. And so we had a lot going on. It was coming up to Christmas and, you know, all the rest of it. And as everyone's doing, living their life, you know, and we're very sad and this and that. We lost our first calf, and we thought, oh, we've been blessed. It's been 10 years. We haven't lost any. And maybe, you know, just unlucky or whatever, you know, sometimes these things happen. So that's what, you know, when we just buried it in our backyard and moved on next to the horse, and because we were burying the horse at the same time, and, you know, it was all very traumatic and very sad. But less than 6 months later, another calf was born with deformities, and it was on tippy toes, and we just thought it was tight tendons. We thought, oh yeah, just got tight tendon. We never seen it before, never seen anything like that before. And we rung around a few farms to see, you know, has anyone had this before? And not many people have heard of it. They said occasionally you get 1 or 2 that might be from, you know, being big in the sack or something and a bit tight, but they normally stretch out. So we rung up the vet and got the vet out, and they treated it for tight tendons. So there's a antibiotic or something you can put in it through a system that naturally loosens up the tendons in the calf, you know, and we got that done. But because of the calf that died over Christmas, we were really watching the calves now, and we noticed it was like, wasn't cognitively there, like it had autism, or it wasn't mentally like the other calves.
Listening.
And it was declining, and it was like similar sort of time frame as the other calf. And this time we acted a little bit quicker. We didn't let it perish, you know, in the paddock like the other one did. So it was a week or so earlier. We got the vet out to euthanize it, but this time we sent it off to get the necropsy done, sort of thing. So and then we still never really linked it to the ant baits, because it wasn't, you know, it was safe and effective, and wasn't even a concern of ours. But now we've had 2 dead calves within a 6-month period. We've never had any problems before, and none of our lines, or because all of our cattle are registered, and they're you know, got generations of history behind them, never had any problems. And I think it was an article, and I've actually got it here. I'll just share it. There was an article that you wrote that I seen on LinkedIn. Let's see if I can pull it up for you. Oh, before I do, but yeah, so that's the vet report from the first one. But I was a bit upset with the program, so I requested, and they never put anything in writing. They always had a verbal thing. So I
And they
said,
never
look,
give you notice to
yeah, well,
get
they
inside
were
the
just
property, or they're aerial spraying you with
yeah,
pesticide.
well, just the general demeanour. So when they're telling you, they're very, we have to do this, but they wouldn't put it in writing and say why they have to do it, or they wouldn't tell you. They like to talk to you verbally rather than actually officially with the documents. So I said, look, can you send through? And this is where I said, look, you got too many. Last time there was like 20, 30 people, and this time I said, look, you can't have that many people. It's stressing them out. And I said, can you actually send me what the hell you're doing, as well? Like, what is this all about? So they sent this email through in red writing like this. Our teams will enter your property to treat for fire ants under Section 261 of the Biosecurity Act, and it goes on, to enter the property and rah 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 and obstructing the officer and all this, and it talks about a $15,000 or $16,000
Right.
fine, and that's what they
I think
sent me.
people, when
Yeah.
they go to the country, many people have very similar stories to you, Trevor.
Yeah.
They've either got some health issue, or that they want to have a new start, a peaceful
Yeah.
start, or
Yeah.
they've already been in the country for a long time. They
Yeah.
actually believe that their home is their castle,
Yep.
that they
Yep.
have rights over that home. And here we've got
Yep.
this Biosecurity Act, and a lot of people don't realize that it's not your castle, that you are, it's literally, they can come in under the pretense of the Biosecurity Act 2014 and enter. And even if there isn't actually a problem on your property, they can still act.
And this is what they want you to believe, though. This is why they're not putting in. So they're over-representing their power.
Yeah.
And when you read it through, and as I learn more about this, I've come to realise that they are over-representing their power. And when you look at this sign, it all comes down to this reasonable excuse.
Ah, right. Yeah.
Yeah. So unless a person has a reasonable excuse. Now, the term reasonable excuse is not defined in the legislation, so it's got to be presented to a magistrate. And I'll go on a bit about that. But yeah, they're certainly representing that they have the authority to do what they're doing, and they're going to do it regardless whether you want to or not. And this is what they're trying to relay. So
And of course, most people would comply, just like yourself, who didn't know, who you
yeah,
can't link the two. So they're
yeah.
just going to say, oh, well, the government has our best interest at heart.
Yeah, that's right, and that's exactly right. And this is what I sort of said to him, like due to the sensitivity, emotional stress, and agitation, I was quite very upset about it at this stage, associated with this activity and ongoing stress and torment to my livestock. I wanted to keep the correspondence by email. I was getting frustrated that they're saying all this stuff without, and then I've got nothing to come back on, and because they were changing their story and it's saying stuff that didn't make sense to me and this and that. So I wanted to have a complete trail of correspondence so I can look at it and understand, and as I put here, this way we can have full accountability, because they were just saying stuff randomly, I felt, and I had nothing to relate that conversation. So I was very unhappy with the high visibility vests. They were ridiculously stressing out my horses. Unfamiliar humans noisily walking around my paddocks and disrupting the daily routines of my animals. So they never gave me any alternatives. Now I see that they're offering adjustment and all this sort of stuff. But at the time, they didn't offer anything, or didn't offer any management plan at all for my animals. So on this last time, I wanted to break it up. So I didn't want them treating in the same paddock that my animals were. So I said, look, you can come and do a paddock or whatever on this day, and I'll make sure there's no animals there, and then we'll move the cattle around, and you can come back another day and do that. So to mitigate some of that problem. So I was trying to work with them. Like you said, I thought they were doing it. And at this point, I didn't have any ill feeling about the toxins. I was more worried about the management. Yeah.
I mean, this must cost an absolute fortune. I mean, you're just one property.
Yeah. And
how can any government afford this? That they've got all these people coming along, helicopters, drones, people on foot, spraying large
over
areas
1,000 people
Australia.
employed by the.
And maybe did you have a map to show people just how huge?
Yeah. So yeah. So it's
So
let's
this
have
was
a look.
it was one of my posts that you saw. I've just seen.
Yeah, this is the post. This is the post that I seen. Let's click on that, and I'll see if I can share that. Is that on your screen? Can you see that?
No, it hasn't. It hasn't come up. I've still got the document.
Okay. So let me just screen it again.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, so that's the article. I was just because I do a lot of work on LinkedIn. I had a podcast too, doing talking about identity and talking about mental health issues and personal empowerment programs and that sort of stuff. And I'm spending a fair bit of time as part of my work on LinkedIn. And I come across this article here that you did, which was around the same time as the second calf was born with cognitive with abnormalities. And I was reading through this, and studies have shown a possible cause of cognitive abnormalities. And this is just after my calf was born, central nervous system and neurotoxin. I was reading this article, and I thought, hang on a minute, maybe that's why my calf is sick. So that's what sort of got me linked to the program is reading this article. So then I started looking into it a little bit further from that article.
And you got your calf. Did you end up getting it autopsied? Wasn't it?
Yeah. So what happened is, I'll just go back to the document. So that's what that article that you had, and then from there, one of the guys, environmental science guys, David Lowe, he liked your article or whatever. So I reached out to him. I think I reached out to you and just reached out to everyone trying to get information because I didn't know anything. I was a bit dumb about it all. And David got me talking to this Dr. Damon Steptoe. Now he's the guy that put an injunction on the program last year and
Right.
went to
the
court.
power of LinkedIn, isn't it, to actually connect with other
Yeah,
people?
to connect people. Yeah, and talking about it. So that court injunction was suspended indefinitely. So and the program actually paid the fees. They tried to get him to pay the fees, but so he was unsuccessful in stopping that program. But he sort of worked alone. That was before the Senate inquiry. But I at this time now, I'm thinking, okay, there's something wrong here. I've lost 2 calves in 6 months. One calf just before Christmas, and I've got one with deformities now. So I'm thinking, hey guys, is there any records or information on the property which had other negative outcomes with livestock corresponding with fire ant treatments? And I'll put here, I've experienced 1 dead calf and 1 calf born with autism in the last 7 months, and I'm investigating the correlation with the fire ant treatments. So that's what I sent the program, and that's on the 3rd of July there. So and I attached the original vet report, which from the treatments from the I had one vet report from where it died in November, and another vet report from the treatment for the tight tendons. We got it treated with tight tendons. So I sent them through, sort of thing, and I just asked Rob, the area coordinator, and this is the guy that talks to me, missus at work and that. So we sort of know this guy, but so I'm not saying he's a bad guy or anything, but I've just asked him a question: can you provide dates and chemicals involved in the material data sheets, used on my property? Because I've since worked out that the Australian Pesticide and Veterinary Medicines Authority have a adverse experience reporting program where you report negative outcomes that you've experienced, and to submit that you need this information. So I need to know the dates that they're on my property, the chemicals, because I didn't know anything about it at the moment. At this stage, I knew nothing about it at all. So I didn't know the dates because I didn't actually monitor any of the dates or any of the times or anything that come on the property or whatever. So I'm just asking, and also I asked for any research or evidence that these treatments are safe. And communications from qualified toxicologists and poison professionals indicate that these chemicals are capable of producing negative effects to calves throughout the pregnancy development. So that's what people were telling me, that they can, if you overexposure can cause problems in fetus and embryo development. So I sort of start saying, like that's reasonable clauses not to come back on my property, like, so
Yeah.
that's what I'm sort of saying to them. And then so I CC'd in AW, and this is where I learned about the APVMA. So then I learned about the adverse experience reporting program. So
yeah, no, I would think most people wouldn't even know that there was
no,
one.
it's quite, no, you don't know, and it's quite involved, and you got to learn. It's a big process. So the APVMA, they're the regulators, and they're the ones that issue the permit for this program, and within that they've got another department, the AERP, which is the Adverse Experience Reporting Program. So, and as it says here, is a post-registration program that assesses reports of adverse experience associated with the use of registered agricultural or veterinary chemical products.
I mean, you think that when they were spraying you with all these products, that they would be in your letterbox, would be, oh, and by the way, if you do have any adverse effects on your animals, please let us know. I mean, you would think
no,
that
nothing like that, nothing.
that would be a normal procedure for a government department to monitor the outcomes.
Yeah, I think not only that though, there was no actual, like, it's just junk mail. They're just putting, like, I didn't even realize it was actually real mail. It's unaddressed to me. It's not specific to my property or my name or my partner's name or anything. Like you say, it didn't have, and since then they come in, actually there's one just here somewhere. They come in like books like this sort of thing, and you got to read them or whatever. But yeah, it just looks like junk mail, just like you get, you just chuck it in the bin, unaddressed mail. Yep. But anyway, so like you say, it's a quite involved process to work out what you've got to do. But what they're saying here is there's a reporting form available on the website, and what you need to fill out the form is evidence of the chemical use, exposure, the treatment exposure dates and routes, and adverse event details, what and when, and any testing performed. So the first step was to get the dates that they put the chemicals on my property and what the chemicals were. So that's what I asked. That's what I asked Rob, and this was his response. If you want to get to the bottom of this, please give me a call. Like, they don't want to put it in writing. Honestly, don't believe in these accusations. There was no accusations. We're just asking for information. We're working with you in every possible way. Sit down and discuss your situation. If you post this, I understand, but don't agree. Happy to work with you on this, Rob. And
doesn't understand what his job is.
Yeah, and that's just in regards to this email. So I just put, can you provide dates, chemicals involved, and material safety data on my property? APVMA require this information for correlation research. Like, there's nothing in there about accusation. I'm just trying to get the information to submit my communication from that due to ongoing correlation. So anyway, that's so I got that. I posted that on
so did you ever get those?
Yeah, so it's a cool story. So that was sent on the 10th of July, and then Rob's response come on the 18th of July, so that's 8 days later. And I just put on there, thanks for your response and anticipated cooperation. I didn't want to talk to him about it. I want it to be in writing, and this is my previous experience. So for transparency and accountability, I wish to maintain written communications. As per the APVMA permit requirements and as previously requested, please provide chemical use, including the details of the chemicals involved in the fire treatment, exposure dates and routes at my property and neighbouring properties. And at that time, I only put 23 and 24 at the earliest convenience. So then it went quiet. They didn't respond after that, nothing. So then I found another lady, another activist from Sanford. He's talking, and that's that lady that you had in your film talking about the creek poisoning in Sanford Valley from there. So I met up with her, and she's one of the admins on the Stop the Toxic Fire page. So I started talking to her and sent her some emails about what I was going through, because she was collecting information as well. So
You know, this is not the job of the general public to be
I know it's
putting
not.
harm, you know. I mean, they
Yeah,
actually have a job in order to be monitoring the effects of this fire ant or whatever program.
six
And
figures.
here we are as the
They
public,
would have-
general public,
Yeah,
having
yeah,
to get them to do their job. You can't even seem to get a single date out of them. It's like
yeah,
blood
yeah,
from a stone. That
yeah,
is
yeah.
actually their job. And I found that a lot of departments are simply not giving people the information.
No, and that's a
And I'm
strategy,
not
I
sure if there's
believe.
the
Yeah, yeah,
legislative
yeah,
ability to force them. I mean,
yeah, yeah,
obviously, you could probably put under freedom of information, but even then, um,
yeah. Takes
do your
weeks and weeks.
response.
But and this Natalie, she's the head of the adverse experience program. So I just let her know I've reached out to management and directors of the fire ant eradication program, and they have failed to respond or provide the requested information. And I said, have you got any suggestions on who or how I can obtain this information? Because they're saying I need this information to submit the adverse report, but I can't get it. I email, and then Rob's gone quiet now because I want it in writing, so he's disappeared off the planet. I've CC'd the director of the program and Rob several times up to this date, and nothing. So this is the 22nd of the July now. So then this lady here from the adverse reporting program just says, to help me help you, please first provide me with the information. Have you submitted an adverse report? And then I said,
Oh wow, you're going around in
no, I
circles.
can't. No, I have not been empowered with the information about the type, states, and baits used in poison distribution, despite multiple emails. Can you help me with context to get this information? And then
It's almost like they don't have the information, like they just sprayed and they didn't bother keeping any records or something.
yeah, so it's interesting, but so this is the vet, and I'm just trying to get the information. So the initial vet report, I'm trying to collect it, and the original vet said they won't give me the vet report. They'll only give it to the Department of Agriculture, or they'll give it to another vet, but they won't send me the report. So I said, okay. I talked to my current vet, and she said, oh, that's right. You get it to send it to me, and then I'll send it to you. And I thought, okay, that's good. At least I get the report. So the demo leverage, yeah. So that was
So
that.
they've got
But then,
liver damage here as the cause for your calf's demise.
yeah, so I'll go through that a little bit more. But back to the AERP. So to help me help you, first can you provide the details of the agency you approach for information? So then next day or whatever, I send a thing. Okay, so oh yeah, so this is from the vet. So this is the preliminary results from the autopsy. There are lesions consistent with Hebo that probably explains the calf altered mental states final days. So that's mental disorder from lack of blood from the liver filtering it. Difficult to determine the cause of end stage liver can lead to, but we have some concern this could be due to tox. So this is the preliminary words for the report was leaked. But this word here is a serious brain disorder, because I have to Google all this stuff. I don't know what this stuff is, but it's a serious brain disorder that occurs when the liver is unable to filter toxins from the blood, causing them to build up. So they're saying that it's consistent with that, you know. So
it's really quite concerning, because the calf is quite a reasonably large animal, and when you think, or if the calf gets damaged by brain and liver damage, what's it doing to humans?
Yeah, and
that's in the long term.
I think, and that's part of the problem is they're talking about you've got to eat your own weight in this poison to kill you, to be fatal. But this is a result of embryo and fetus development problems from repeated exposure in my cattle. So we're talking about that.
What
a
about
bit
the
later.
farmers who have breeding cattle for food? That they would be also, through the air and various methods, being exposed to this chemical. So their livestock is potentially absorbing all of these chemicals. People are buying the meat and are being poisoned.
Yeah, so it's interesting. It's interesting you should say that, because I've got let me just open it here. I've got the actual, because I meant to talk about it before, but I've got the actual let's see if I can find it. I've got the actual is it here. The chemical sheet, I'll just share it. Let's go back to Zoom. I'll just go share. I've got the actual data sheet here. So this was sent to me when I got that information and got about the Biosecurity Act was sent to me. So this is actual one of the toxins that they use is distance ant bait, and it's pyroxofen. Pyroxofen is its active ingredient. But the interesting thing about this, when you read through it, is we'll just go through it. So just read through it a bit. So it's got on here harmful to aquatic life with long-lasting effects. That's what it says on the sheet.
So this is the stuff that they're actually spraying.
This is the stuff.
Is that the one that they're spraying in the helicopters and drones?
Yep.
And by hand.
And by hand. Yep. This is one of the two that they use. They've got two. But yeah, harmful to aquatic life with long-lasting effects. Avoid, and it says here, avoid release to the environment. Precautionary statements. Dispose of contents. So several times it says here general information. Avoid skins. So you need a lot of safety gear when you're doing it. So it recommends gloves up to your thing, and full protective clothing and full protective glasses. So it does suggest that they do know this stuff is dangerous, but otherwise, A, it wouldn't be regulated, and B, you wouldn't have to have all this safety gear. You know what I mean? Like, it's quite, but it says here.
So just out of curiosity, the people that were coming on your property, were they all geared up?
No. And they minimise, and this is the problem that they have. They minimise the harm that these chemicals have, which creates complacency, and it creates complacency in the workers when they're distributing it, and also their distribution, because they realise, oh, this is just like candy, it doesn't matter, it's not doing anything. And so the distribution on my property was more than what it should have been, because they're just very complacent, because they're trained that it's no harm, and that's what they're telling me. And it's like, it's just like putting water out. But as it says, environmental precautions: avoid discharge in the drains or watercourses or onto the ground, avoid discharge to the aquatic environment. And like here it is here, wear protective clothing as described in section 8. So it's all quite serious.
So they're actually being quite irresponsible in the sense that all their workers who are running around spraying this stuff like candy
and more
are
recently,
not actually geared up according to the safety data sheet.
Yeah. And until recently on the campaign, they have started a little bit of that, but the actual program actually got videos of people doing this in their promotional thing that aren't geared up properly, as per the data sheet. But the interesting thing is, when you go to the bottom of it, and this is where you talk about the effects of this poison. So it's interesting. So it says toxicity, harmful to aquatic life with long-lasting effects. It says that throughout this document several times. It's quite obvious that it's harmful to aquatic life with long-lasting effects. And it also,
does it actually say what the half-life of this product is?
Well, it says here, this is what one of the subtle things is. So the degradability of this product is not known. The degradability of this product is not known. And it says bioaccumulation. So this is where repeated exposure can build up in animals, like in muscle tissues and this and that, to create negative effects after prolonged exposure or repeated exposure to these products. It says bioaccumulative protective, no data available on bioaccumulation. So they've got the degradability of this product is not known, and the data available on bioaccumulation, there's no data available. They've done nothing on bioaccumulation.
And they're spraying this stuff like 3 times a year.
Yeah, that's right.
And unregulated amounts. They don't seem to be able to give you how much they're spraying, nor are they testing the soil to see what is actually still existing there.
Yeah, no tests. And it's clear that it's harmful for aquatic life. Very clear. It says it several times in that. So that's interesting that there. So that's one of the things. So it says there's no data available on bioaccumulation, and the degradability of this product is not known. So there are 2 things that I just want to keep in mind as we keep going. And this is the actual document that they sent me in my initial request, and it's a safety data sheet of one of the products that they use, Distance. They also use Engage, so there's two, but we'll get into that. But I'll just go back to my, just them 2 points are just quite mind-boggling on their own. But
so to this day, you actually have not got those dates or what was sprayed.
Yeah, so we're up to 24. So I kept going backwards and forwards with the AR, adverse experience thing, and I told them the emails I was using and that to try and get it, and then they says, oh, you're probably better off just using the general email number, and that way you get a reference, inquiry. So I tried that, and I didn't get back, and then on the 9th of August. So I've been trying. We'll just go back. My first inquiry was my first inquiry was 10th of July. So that's when I first sent it, 10th of July to Rob, when I requested the dates of the chemicals involved. So 10th of July, that's when I first requested it. And then I'm going backwards and forwards, and then trying to get information, trying to get contacts, and having no luck at all.
And I imagine you've taken this to your local member.
Yeah, several times, and they just ignore you as well. No problems. Several times, both the state and federal local member haven't received one email back from them at all, or one letter. I've spoken to them.
They obviously don't care about being poisoned to themselves, because all
Yeah,
of this
it's quite
even though it's
bizarre.
just on your property, it's everywhere.
Yeah. And so here's Natalie following up on the 9th of August. So this is a month later. She just wants to follow up on this matter because she understands I've been unsuccessful in contacting the department regarding the details. So she's saying at this point, put in a report without the details because I haven't got them yet. So she says you can just put unknown or unregistered product. So I got to say I don't know, and put in the adverse report because I've got no information yet about that. And she shows me how to go about putting it in without that knowledge. You can just tick this box in the internet, and she says we can sort that out once we get that information later on. So I said, okay, no worries, okay, and I did that. And then so I've got the necropsy report from the USQ at the moment. So so this is even later after I put down the second calf, and this is the main things about it. So they were very persistent. I actually pay extra to rule out any viral infections. So in each viral one, you have to spend an extra $125 or whatever. So PCR, bovine viral diarrhea, and virus spleen, or all these other one, immunodiffused test, bovine viral diarrhea, or whatever. And they come through negative. So there was no known viral infection that could cause that liver problem. So the final diagnosis on the necropsy report was degenerative hepatitis. I don't know how to pronounce these words, hepatitis, whatever that is. But I Googled the definition here, and degenerative liver disease is a term that describes the presence of degenerative changes in the liver. Hepatopathy is a general term for an abnormal or diseased state of liver. So I have an abnormal and diseased state of liver. It goes on in the notes to explain that the liver was over 1.5 times its normal size. So this hepatic pathology, whatever it is, a loss of brain function when a damaged liver doesn't remove toxins from the brain. So that's the final diagnosis. That's what my calf died on. So in the final comments, it says the cause of the illness in this case was a severe hepatopathy, which is a general term of the disease of the state of the liver, characterized by pre-existing and necrosis and fibrosis. So that's just the thickening and scarring of connected tissues. Toxic and/or genetic hepatitis is favored over infectious inflammatory. So it's saying that it's either toxic caused it or genetic is favored over infection, because I tested for all the infection things and they come back negative. So there's no
And of
genetic
course,
history. There's no genetic history in my cattle. We've got generations, like generations. So there's no history of any genetic problems with liver disease. So it just leaves toxic there. But
it's interesting
they're
that
the
you have
common.
to rule out all of these other causes when the
Yeah,
most
yeah,
obvious
and that's
cause
on
is
me.
there.
That's on me to do. You know, even though they're the ones that are putting toxic poison on my it's up to me. I have to pay for this, and I have to pay for water tests. I have to pay for everything to do it. And I got to prove that it is them, which is very challenging to do and very costly. And there's so many other things because it talks about, you know, you can get toxins from weeds and you can get toxins from this and that. So we've only got a small 10 acres. We haven't got the fireweed. We haven't got the antenna. We haven't got the toxic plants on our property. It's a very well maintained property. There's no toxic poisons here at all. And we've never had any history of any toxic poisons at all in any of our cattle. So I could rule that out without being a scientific bloody genius because I live in this property and I know that there's none of that there. So, and I know the genetics of my cattle are good. We've got good history that's fully registered and we've got generations of records and there's no history of that sort of stuff there. So it's only can be the fire ant bait. So what's happened, and I went through and done the tests. I'll keep going through this thing here, but anyway, that's I've been trying. So at this point, I've got severe concerns, obviously, because that the report's saying that I've got toxic liver poisoning in my cattle. That's what it says. So I've got really big concerns about this, and I want that I feel that the eradication program should be halted, and we need to look at this and stop this stuff from happening. But nothing was going on. They weren't stopping it. I tried to get it stopped. And no one cares. So the interesting thing, so I ended up putting in a complaint. So based on the original email, they've got us self-funded. The Treasury's got their own self-funded insurance policy. So, so I thought, okay, I'll make a claim on that because no one's getting back to me yet. I still haven't got the dates or the poisons or nothing yet. So I thought, okay, I'll try and shake the tree a bit and put a claim on the insurance policy. So I tried to go through the Treasury, that didn't work. You actually got to go through the program, and the program's got to authorise some compensation through their insurance policy. It's not an external policy; it's an internal one. And I've got the policy there, but we won't bore people. But so I'm just trying to get some responses with these things, So talking about these sorts. So this is the letter I wrote to all state members. So I wrote everyone, the whole state member, Trevor Hold here. Many may have heard about the difficulties, and I sent all the vet reports and sent all the adverse effects and everything I and many others have faced in dealing with the fire ant eradication program. For those who've not heard, I'm expressing my severe concerns about the program and the directors. At the time when the Prime Minister of Australia is calling to turn the heat in political discussions, many residents of Southeast Queensland have been subject to bullying, coercive control strategies, lies and dissent, and misleading information regarding the fire ant eradication program. Let me be 100% clear and transparent to every member of Queensland Parliament and the selected media outlets. The fire ant eradication program is currently being conducted in a way which is very dangerous, very dangerous to the people and families' physical and mental health, dangerous to the environment, dangerous to native wildlife, agriculture and farming activities. So I was getting a lot of other people, and you can see it all on the Toxic Fire Ant page on Facebook. People are getting stressed out and worried about them coming. And at this point, people have reached out for me for help, and I was advocating for them. And I'm still not getting anywhere with my own case. It's like a loop of despair. So, I talked about,
and of course, everyone else has to do exactly the same thing.
Exactly the same thing. It's quite,
whereas there's this government department that's supposed to be there collecting adverse events, and then they'll be able to actually map out what's actually happening. They can actually go and do the testing on the ground and see what the actual concentration is and stop the program. But obviously, they seem to be complicit in not wanting to hear anyone's concerns and just continue to spray regardless.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
And I know you sent some documents, and you actually said the Department of Defence was also involved. Is that correct in this program?
Yeah, so well they are. There is some documents there because the Department of Defence is responsible for taking fire ants from I think from Angly to Oakey. So they've actually had to have training and everything on the fire ants. So they're actually responsible for, because fire ants are moving via human activity more so than the actual themselves. But I eventually, and this is where I've, several emails I sent to both my state and federal members. They haven't got back to me. Severe concerns. I actually wrote, trying to get a response from anyone. I wrote that Warrabilla post about, all the stress and pressure could create negative outcomes, and that caused a fair bit of a stir. And actually, Mark Fenner responded to that, saying he was going to report me to the authorities. So that's the only real correspondence I had from them, which is quite.
I mean, look, they talk about bullying and so forth, but you've got people suicidal over this whole
That's right.
thing.
Yeah. And that's what I was very concerned about. And plus also recent history down the border in New South Wales, there was a Environmental Protection Agency shot, and because someone was clearing trees, an old farmer was clearing trees on his private property or whatever, and the Environmental Protection Agency came over a few times, and this young guy or whatever doing his job or whatever got shot and killed, and the old farmer, 85-year-old, got sentenced, to jail for, stressing them out. And that someone's life is gone, but you can't undo that. But that's the sort of fear that I had with this program, because it was putting people in the, like they're not getting back to you, they're not responding, they're just, and I wrote an article about a loop of despair where you just, like you say, you can't navigate this system. There's no rule book for it, or that you don't know how to go about what you're trying to do. It's really strange. But as I went through to the and I got some information, so I finally got some information. I got the reports and that done to the adverse experience reporting program, and so I sent some stuff to it, and I says, so when you do your assessment of what's going on, are you going to let me know and give me the results back? And then this is what the ARP actually sent me. They says, I cannot guarantee that the AERP will be able to provide you with the outcome of this assessment. So this is after I sent them all this documentation, the vet reports and everything, and all that sort of stuff that I sent them. And they says there are several factors which affect whether we can provide any information following an assessment. One example is that we cannot provide further information if it is considered that the outcome of an assessment may lead to an investigation. So if they feel that they've done the wrong thing, they're not going to tell me. That's basically what they say.
This is very reminiscent of the vaccine compensation program that the government has now shut down. They send people around in circles.
Yeah.
And that's what I did.
And I did an article on that, the loop of despair. So I actually,
and not everyone is as competent as you are, Trevor, to be, sending all these emails and.
Oh, it's ridiculous, and not just competent, but stubbornness as well. And plus, I'm very blessed in the fact that I'm self-employed and I've got time. All this is very time-consuming. Most people have got jobs and lives, and that my kids have moved out now, so I don't have to worry about that sort of stuff. But I'm very blessed in the fact that I can spend the time that I need to on this, and I'm not being paid to do it, but I've got this. So I guessed Marnie's email. So I found out that the director, that Graham guy, who was the old director of it, was sacked or whatever. And this Marnie Manning, she took over, and just by guessing her email, because most of the DAF had like Marnie.Manning or whatever at daf.com.au or whatever. So I just tried that email.
All right.
This is the 21st of August. Remember, 10th of July, I first asked for that information, and I hadn't got it yet. And I just guessed it. And I said, Trevor Hold here. I've been unsuccessfully trying to get information from the fire ant eradication program for a number of months now in regards to the poison dates, types, and volumes used at my address. This information is required for the adverse experience I've lived with regards to the death of 2 of my calves. And also I wanted to claim on policy number, blah, 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 for loss of income, vet costs, autopsy costs, investigation costs, and ongoing tests. Cost me thousands of dollars in water tests and everything, and emotional trauma. So please may you provide. So finally with that, guessing that email, I got a response, and I got the actual her email address there.
Oh, nice.
So she responded, and instead of responding to the many emails, she actually responded with this email. So finally, I'm getting somewhere. So she sent it to this Director of Legislation and Policy for assessment, and rah, and says I'll have it by the 26th of August. No, that's great. That's good. Which is good. So and then so this is what's. So this is from the Department of Agriculture. So this is interesting, this letter here. So this was sent to me. So there used to be, and they changed it so many times. So there used to be like a complaints to the fire ant department, which was getting nowhere. It was just going in a loop and not even going anywhere. So, and then there's like DAF, which is the Department of Agriculture and Fisheries. But then there's also biosecurity, Queensland biosecurity. So there's three, they're all under DAF. Biosecurity is another division in the fire ant departments, and there's actually a tree chart, organisational chart that shows you how that's broken down. But they used to be able to complain to DAF. So I complained to DAF, trying to get some result, just not getting anywhere. And I got this email from DAF, and it says my complaint will be managed by Dr. Richard Watts, Senior Principal Scientific Advisor, who will oversee the investigation and response. That's what they sent me. And this is interesting because later on, that this never happens. This has never happened. And this doctor, I've never heard anything from this doctor, even though they sent me this email within 30 business days. But I've never heard from this doctor ever. And they tell me that I can't nominate who's going to do the report. Yet they nominated him to me, but they refused to let him do the report for whatever reason.
And do you have his contact details at all? Or?
Yeah, I can ring him up. Well, I haven't spoken to him. I ring up the department and say, can I speak to him? But he never picks up the phone and never speaks to me. So, but
he's supposed to be managing your investigation and response.
Yeah, he was meant to be. That's right. Yeah, but never happened. So that's interesting.
So he should be replying to you.
Yeah, it's interesting, but anyway, that's exactly right. It should be, but never happened. Never happened. And then later on, they say that I cannot nominate him to do it, and I didn't nominate him. He's supposed to be managing it, but anyway. So obviously he didn't want to manage it, and he didn't want anything to do with it. And then they passed it off to someone else, but he never done the investigation at all. So it's quite interesting. So then I realise now that there's no practical outcomes for me providing information to the adverse experience reporting program. There's none at all, because they're not stopping the program. They're just using information against me in my case, and they're not going to provide me any information that will benefit to me. You know what I mean? So they're just like creating evidence to use against me without providing any information that might be able to use myself. So, they're complicit in the damaging behaviour, and, So I've seen some visits, starting to get a bit more informed now. Their own expert, Dr. Robert Puckett, he's claimed to be an international fire ant expert. Since I've learned he's not that recognised, but he's their expert that they used. And he has actually quoted his video of him saying he would never recommend laying fire ant baits where no fire ants can be seen. That's what he says when he first comes in. I know he's changed.
So they're basically doing this program without any science to support anything that they're actually doing.
Yeah.
And no one seems to be accountable.
No one's accountable at all. They're just doing it.
All of this damage, and no one's going to be paying out because they're not going to give you any information. And any time you do ask for it, they're not going to incriminate themselves, and they'll just try and blame everything on, Next, they'll just tell you it's your mental health, that it's you're imagining the whole thing.
So I received a draft copy finally of the Director of Legislation about my complaint. So Marnie's got the response. She asked for more information to be put into it. And then on this date, 27th of August, so 10th of July, I requested it. On this date, with dozens of emails, literally dozens and dozens of emails, I finally get this response from my initial inquiry on the 10th of July. I get this these dates here.
All right.
Dozens of literal phone calls and emails and just unbelievable. But finally I get it. And then I realized, well, hang on, the only two that I knew of was when I booked them in as an appointment and I had it in writing. So I could actually confirm that they were there on my property at 19th of the 3rd. And it's not even, there's no 19th of the 3rd there. So
it's incomplete, the report.
It's
then.
incomplete at this stage. And I know for a fact there was more than one aerial baiting because I know I was arrested more than once. So I says to Marty, so it's interesting that the key principles for customer complaint resolution, timely and fair. All complaints will be handled in a clear, timely, and impartial way. So this is their own standard, but they're not even following their own key principles for customer complaint. It's legit. I got 2 dead calves. You would think it would be a priority to work with me and sort it out, but they've just gone through this loop of despair and they just keep ignoring me and whatever and keep putting it off. But anyway, so they did finally send me something that was wrong. Straight away I knew it was wrong because of that, and only had that one. So I said to Marnie, I said, hey Marnie, I received a reply with your general year dates of poison distribution. Thank you. I quickly done a screenshot attached of the table, which is that screenshot over there. Please may you look at this for me, as there is at least one aerial baiting missing approximately. So I've got a photo and I think it was the 1st of March, I think, or there's a date there that we've actually published it on Facebook at the time. It was on a Sunday and it was a wrestling thing in between that thing. I didn't want to give them the exact dates. I wanted them to provide me the dates, and I can provide the rego number of the, because it was so close, I could see the rego number of the helicopter, in the photo, and at least another quad motorbike distribution missing. So I can assert some specific dates. I was hoping for more specific dates and volumes used that would help compare to our rain charts, conception and birth dates of the calves. So can you please provide guidance on how I can go about obtaining more accurate and specific information? So I just didn't. That just wasn't right. It just wasn't accurate at all. So
they just provided the dates, but they don't provide the quantities used or
no. And this is the other thing. Yeah. So in the okay. So we'll just go a bit further. So
they just say 100% complete. I mean, what exactly does that mean?
Yeah.
I mean, look, it looks like a child's report. Really, it's crazy. I mean, they're putting toxic poison on your property. They can't give you the dates.
So then
it doesn't break down.
Yeah, it doesn't break down. That's right. Yeah. So she asked for more information. So I gave her the registration of the helicopter, and I gave her all the information that I had. And I questioned about some of the preventative measures that they're doing and rah. And then in the end, I got another table. And this is a little bit different now. Still doesn't have the one aerial baiting in 2020 that I got the photograph for, literally above my property. But you can see the difference between the first table I got and the second table I got. And second table still didn't have this 19th, which I know they were there on, still doesn't have that on there. So, but what I can do is I can actually show you Marnie's response. I've got it here. It
just seems to me that they don't even seem to know and have complete records.
No, they don't know. They haven't got a clue what they're doing.
And I think the reasoning too is that if they don't have the records, then no one can sue them. Get any compensation as you.
Well, they can just. It just seems to me that's half the reason, is just trying to make it hard for you to. Like you say, if ignorance is bliss, So let me just see if I can find it here. Response letter. So this is I'll just go back to I'll just share it and just read it for you. So this is the second response from Marnie after I said, look, the first information was wrong. So, dear Mr. Hold, I refer to your emails 27th of August 2024, 28th and 29th seeking clarification. So this is when I told her everything, information. Please write, while I'm happy to provide these responses, your original correspondence is now subject to a formal complaint management process, which must allow the independence and blah, blah, blah. Please find below an updated record of treatment dates for your property. Incomplete information was reported in the initial response due to an administration error they're blaming, in which a program representative searched the official system using your name as opposed to your property address. It became apparent that a second person was involved in discussion about treatment of the Adair property, which resulted in missed entries. So they're sort of blaming an administrative error for the wrong table, but even this table's not right.
It's incomplete.
Yeah, even this one's not right. But anyway, and she goes on and blah blah blah, talks.
And this is unrelenting, really. When you have to deal with this, you got to keep going back.
And don't forget, like I'm trying to study my psychology. I'm trying to work full time, manage my farm, and go through all this. It's just relentless. Just go to this one here. Yeah, so I got no. So eventually this guy gets back to me. He's now secured. They've been poisoning my property, and there's records of it since 2019 on my Pacific property. But I've been talking to people who have been poisoned since 2016 from helicopters, aerial baiting, and they've now, on this date, 16th of September, secured an expert toxicology to assist. So before that, they never had a toxicologist, apparently. So
the program's supposed to go to what, 2026?
Well, they want to keep going to 2032. I think they got funding for 2027 at the moment. Yeah. At the moment,
I guess there's no records of how many people have got cancer in your area or other diseases.
I'm not sure of it, but it's just relentless. Like you say, 3 times a year for the foreseeable future. This is what they're doing. So I'm getting a bit sick of this guy. He's providing false information, and I sort of say, look, previous correspondence from you has been proven to be false and misleading. They're providing me due to I'm having ongoing difficulties with communications and failures of the past. I'm not accepting information from this guy anymore. So I said, look, either from Money Manning or independent representatives. So my understanding is which was sent to me, Dr. Richard Watts, the Senior Pacific Scientific Advisor, is responsible for responding to my complaint, and I'm waiting for him. This is what the letter said, that guy was managing my complaint, and which never heard from him once.
Does he even exist?
Yeah. Well, I don't know, but he never come. So anyway, he ends up recent complaint to fire the Australian vet. Yeah. So this is interesting from the director of the APVMA. And what this letter is saying is that the APVMA, and this is important later, is not the appropriate authority to address the broader concerns relating to the fire and eradication program. It regulates up to and including the point of sale. So after it's sold to them, it washes their hands of them.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So it's no longer them. They just give the permit to do it, and it's up to the program to manage it from there. So anyway, thousands more emails and whatever. But eventually I get this email. Please note confidentially provisions associated with this document. So I just opened this document. So this is supposed to be this senior toxicologist that they got, and it's supposed to be confidential. I'm not supposed to share anyone, but it's very childish. It's nearly laughable, really, if it wasn't so serious. Is it there? No, that's not it.
It's interesting that they can just stamp the word confidential as though it has some sort of meaning.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah,
they work for us. They're public servants, literally, and they're stamping the word confidential while they're poisoning us.
Yeah. That's right. Let me just see if I can. there's a one here. Got a few things here. Is that report there? No, that's not it. Just bear with me a second. Sorry.
And while you're there, it'd be good for the people to see the map of how extensive this program is. I
Yeah.
don't even understand how they can afford it, and where, you know, obviously it's hiring a lot of people if they're able
Over
to
1,000 people. Over 1,000 people are employed by it.
to go farm to farm and spray everything in sight. It's incredible.
Yeah, yeah.
And all these people's livelihoods are directly tied to this program. And I guess in some ways they have an incentive to allow it to continue or see it continues.
I've actually had threats of my life on this program trying to stop it. People have told me to put a gun to my head and pull the trigger. People, anonymous people, you know, like on social media and that sort of stuff. Yeah, a few times,
Trolls. I
3
mean,
or 4.
ultimately, who would want to see you dead for basically raising a good concern? I mean, it's
I
in
think
the
it's
old
just people
days.
that have got financial interest in it, isn't it? You know, like it's just really bizarre,
Yeah.
really bizarre. Because I'm just asking questions. I'm not even being nasty about it, and none of my correspondence has got any bit of nastiness in it. I'm just trying to get to the bottom of what's going on, you know. So
It'd be interesting to see the money trail as to where it goes back to, who's where the chemicals are being bought from, who's profiting out of all of this, because there's always someone making money.
yeah,
It seems
that's
to
right.
me
Yeah,
that the program is completely run by cowboys. It doesn't
yeah.
have any basis in science, and we know how that went down.
It's very similar because the inquiry for COVID just come through. We can just talk about it just while I try and find this. The inquiry from COVID was just released the other day. I don't know if you've read it yet. 830 pages long, but one of the biggest issues raised in that was that community trust in government is at an all-time low. So they're saying now if there was another COVID outbreak, then people wouldn't be so compliant now because they just got no trust in the government. So, and one of the other things that the inquiry says was decision makers need to consider human rights, be more heavily involved in the decision making process because there's not enough weight put on human rights of individuals. And that was in the inquiry of COVID. And I feel this is very similar, whereas it's invasion of human rights and property rights and that sort of stuff isn't, and there's not enough weight on that in the decision making process.
There's been a lot of public meetings, haven't they, to try and stop this, or even just get
Yeah, yeah. There's been lots. Yeah, we've had a lot of community meetings in regards to you know, just even getting you know, biosecurity officers. We've actually got the actual biosecurity guy that was there when they first discovered the fire ants in 2001, you know, and he was talking up about it. And we've got vets. There's vets in Currumbin that are talking out about dead dogs and dead pets. And there's university doctors, research doctors at university. They can't say that they're supported by the university, but they're just as individuals speaking up against it. And we can show a bit of that later. But at the moment, here's this will blow your mind. So this one here is the actual confidential thing that I'm not supposed to share anyone. Like you say, they just stamped it confidential. So this is a private company, SLR.
okay. So
Rian,
they're outsourcing this sort of
they
stuff.
outsourced it, yeah. So to this company here from from whoever this is. Ryan Cope is the name. SLR Consulting Australia. So basically, a bit of background and they looked at the vet reports and the toxicology reports and the necropsy reports and blah blah blah, and they looked at this table, which is wrong, and the dates. They never considered the aerial baiting of the neighbour's property or the rain charts, how the rain would have washed it into the dams, or never considered anything. So basically, this is just a PR exercise just to say that they've done it. But it's quite interesting when you read it, because we'll just get down. It's actually quite, that's the same diagnosis there: liver poisoning.
Yeah, they're basically just cut and pasting what you've already sent them and putting it into.
basically, and then they go through and say, it's quite safe and effective and and even the distribution, so that they're assuming that the distribution of it on my property was as per the permit, which I know it wasn't. So they're just assuming. So the conclusion, based on the available data and evaluation presented above, it is unlikely that pyroxafen and S-methoprene or other components of the ant baits are responsible for the diseases observed in calf 1 or 2.
They can't give you a reason why they.
No, but they can't even say it wasn't. They just say unlikely, so it's unlikely. And the other thing that's interesting is, let's see if I can find it here.
And I guess they're relying on producing this kind of report to a court
and
or
it's just all
something,
like,
and saying, hey, but here's the conclusion. We got our expert, and even if there's no evidence, he's just stamped a conclusion.
So critically, the risk of toxicity of distant ant bait and engaged ant bait to mammals and livestock, it says, would have been assessed by the Australian Pesticide and Vet. I haven't seen that assessment. There's nothing there. They just recklessly stamp all this stuff, So they're saying unlikely. They're using words like unlikely, ifs, buts, would have. There's nothing. It's just all mumbo jumbo. The risk of toxicity of distant ant bait and engaged to birds would have been assessed. Would have been,
Would have been. Oh, and they don't say was. No.
Yeah, it doesn't say was, no, and if, and there's words like this, it's all conjecture. So the overall evaluation indicates that neither pyroxafen or S-methoprene and other baits are likely to be responsible for the observed disease in carp. The risk of adverse off-target effects of the relevant bait products on mammals, livestock, and birds is likely negligible, provided that the products are used in accordance with the label directions. They're not used by the label directions. The APVMA have gave them special permits. So it's just unbelievable how it's ifs, buts, maybes, and it's unlikely if it's used in accordance with their label directions, but they've got a special permit.
And they've done this very similar to the whole COVID narrative, where you had, the various, APRA, and then there was the TGA, the gene technology, and basically everyone just passes the buck around, and no one is actually accountable for anything.
And the interesting
thing
is
thing.
Yeah, some of the research is like 50 years old, like 1999 toxicology evaluation. So there's actually recent ones printed in 2024 peer-reviewed scientific studies saying it does affect rats, it does affect mammals and chicken embryos and fetus, and repeated exposure does cause. But they're not referring to them studies. You know what I mean? They've picked and selected.
They cherry pick what they want.
Yeah. That's right. And that's 20.
And that's the beauty of studies.
Quarter of a century old, that research. Now, I'm studying now, and the general thing that they teach you is don't look at anything more than 10 years old. Try and find current studies. And there's plenty of current studies that are actually dated this year and last year that say it does affect mammals, and it does affect embryos and fetus development. So they're just ignoring the scientific evidence. And I feel that they're trying to pick scientific things to justify what they're doing, or to be able to continue, but it's just all pseudoscience. It's just ridiculous.
And one thing, though, I mean, the greenies should be all over this, is the fact that this product is not just specific to fire ants, and I think people need to understand that it does affect not just other calves, but other insect species. It affects the whole ecology.
And the interesting thing is the government themselves are misrepresenting that, because they say there are no non-target species affected, which is a complete lie. And all the articles, like I've been in lots of newspaper articles and that, they all say a spokesperson for the National Fire and Eradication Program, so they don't name the person who says it, says that there are no non-target, and in their own reports, even on the own label of the distant ant bait, it says it affects meat ants. And it's not specific to fire ants. There's 5 natural native species of ant that it's actually formulated to target. It actually says on there, you know. So it does, and that's one of the problems with prophylactic treatment that's been identified by the experts, is putting this bait down where there's no fire ants is actually priming the land for fire ant invasion, because the best immunity that the land has is native ants, you know, to be able to stop the queens from setting up a new thing. If there's ants around, then they can stop it from happening. They don't want them in their territory. But if you prophylactically treat the property first, then there's no native ants, and then the super pest, which is really good at moving fast into new infestation zones, is uncontested. So
Yeah, it's like they don't understand what integrated pest management is. All they want to do is, you know, carpet bomb the whole place.
Yeah, carpet bomb. That's a good term. Yeah. So yeah. So anyway, so then I've got a a review. You can review decisions. So I've got a review in at the moment and still undergoing, but that's where I'm up to with my
And the thing is, how I feel this all plays out is they know that someone like you will come along and object. They know the public process, and it all takes time. And as it, you know, every community meeting, all these letters going back and forth, people continue to get poisoned. The land continues to get poisoned. Nothing is stopping this machine that is causing sickness and death and harm to everything in its way. And on top of it, as you say, the human rights violations, like even if you want to, even though they want to believe it's safe and effective, we've all heard that before, they need to have the public on side. They need to work with the public. They need to be held accountable for the damages that have been done, and prove to you that it wasn't these products. They need to be ones that are proving, no, it was something else, and this is what it was. But instead, they're saying, oh, we don't know, you know, we think it's unlikely.
Unlikely.
We think
that's
it's unlikely.
Right. Yeah. That's right. And that's what happens. And in fact, their own I haven't got it on this one here, but their own biosecurity act, their own law that they're working on actually says they have to get community support.
Oh,
you know?
really?
Yeah. It's actually in the act, you know.
And I have this, I think you sent me this letter too or this report, which was by the organic industry. That was saying that it threatens the $280 billion organic export industry. So a lot of people who are eating organic food don't realize that meanwhile, their own government is contaminating the land.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about
some
that
people
is,
eat. There's no assessment on the health impacts of that, and to sensitive individuals like your wife, who has prior history of illness, this is not something that she wants to be exposed to. And you came to this environment to simply escape and, you know, set up a peaceful life. And I think a lot of people actually fled Victoria, Melbourne in particular, to southeast Queensland for to live this kind of peaceful life. And here we have the Queensland government poisoning the population. And I mean, we can say that, but they can come back and say, well, how exactly are they not poisoning? Can they prove it? And I think there was another group, didn't they? They tested the water and they actually found the poisons were in the water.
Yeah, well, that was that first article that you done. That was it. And that was a video of Sarah talking about that, where the propoxyphene levels of the main water supplies in Sanford were 1,000 times acceptable limit, or over 1,000 times acceptable limit, because they dropped it literally in the water. So the interesting thing is now, if we look at we can look at permits and we can look at all this stuff now, but they're literally aerial baiting, throwing chemicals out of helicopters in areas where it's impossible for fire ants to even establish successful colonies. So not only are there no fire ants there, but they're actually doing stuff, baiting in areas that are impossible for fire ants to establish successful colonies. So fire ants can't live in canopied areas, in these rainforest areas or these bushland areas. They need sunlight and open plains. So they're actually getting helicopters, and there's videos of them.
Yeah, do you want to show that video? Because I think it'd be
Yeah,
good.
let's go and see if we can find some here. We can
And at this point, to remind people that there is no existential threat to human survival for having fire ants, and that they have been in countries effectively managed. In fact, I don't think there's any recorded history of ever eliminating fire ants from the environment.
there's not.
I think they've
It's
sort of
all-
moved now. The wording has now moved from elimination down to the word suppression. It's very interesting how they choose the words. They're using the word suppression, and we're using the word poisoning.
Yeah, but even suppression, like I can support a suppression program. They're still erratic. So this is where it gets confusing for people. Let me just get the map up here. I know, well, I do, just to talk about it a little bit, because this is probably important. So if you type in fire ant eradication program, and we'll just see if we can find the program. Stop the spread, fire ant map. Tree, residential. Here it is here. Okay, medication treatment. Okay. Let's see if I can zoom it up a bit. Okay, so I'll just share this map with us. Share screen. So here's a map of the eradication zone. And for those that don't know, I can't drive this. So the red is the eradication zone. That would take literally 10 hours to drive that eradication zone. That whole area is 830 hectares, 30,000 hectares, 830,000 hectares. So the red zones, what they call,
I mean, is that the orange zone you're talking about?
the orange zone, sorry, that orange zone is actually called the eradication zone. So that's where they're regardless of whether there's fire ants or not, they're baiting that via helicopter, via full ultra terrain vehicles, or via hand baiting. Regardless, that's what they're doing 3 times a year. So that's no matter what happens, that's what's going to happen, and they're going to do that 3 times a year for the next 2 years in that zone, and then they're going to assess it and see if they can creep that in a little bit, and then they'll do that new eradication zone. So fire ants, the suppression zone is the white zone in between that and the water. So that's all the suppression zone. So at the moment, regardless whether there's fire ants or not, they're baiting that in the eradication zone. And
the blue,
that's the surveillance. So they're
the
just
surveillance area.
So they're looking there, and what they're finding, and even as late as the other day, finding fire ants outside this eradication zone. Like they found some north up here, they found some near Toowoomba. There's plenty, and there's plenty down south as well. So there's lots of outliners that aren't even in the eradication zone as well. So many experts, including Pam Swepson, who was the whistleblower of the year in 2013. She used to be the lead in the fire ant program. She said that fire ant eradication is impossible. Dr. Joshua King in the University of Florida, he's actually wrote an open letter saying that eradication is impossible, and it's not anecdotal, because these ants were first discovered in 2001 at the port of Brisbane, But at that time, they'd done a survey and they estimated at least 15 years earlier. So they were here probably in the 1980s, you know, somewhere like that. So they've been here for quite some time, 40, 50 years. And over 830,000 hectares, plus with outlying communities that they're trying to do, it's impossible to eradicate them. So
And of
we've got
course, today it's fire ants, and then tomorrow it could be some other virus, other
it's interesting
pests.
that it's fire ants here, and even in this zone here, there's actually been some crazy yellow ants. But I've been getting phone calls from up north in Townsville about the crazy yellow ants, and they've got an eradication program as well. Apparently, they're very pesty and need to be eradicated, and they're using similar technologies and similar chemicals to treat them. And then a bit further north again, there's electric ants. So right through Queensland, there's these eradication programs going on of different ants that are just polluting our whole world. It's really,
And we had the viralomite program where they were setting,
yeah,
bees on fire with petrol or diesel.
yeah, yeah.
That eventually stopped, didn't it, at some point?
Yeah,
Enough community outrage, I guess. Bees are a little
that
bit more
that's a big area though. That's a massive area, and as they
massive.
move in, it's getting more and more populated. You know what I mean? More and more populated
But
in
of
the
course, the
city.
poison doesn't just stay in that particular area. I think
No, no,
this is the
yeah,
myth. They draw this little graph. There's the wind transports the poison, and as you say, we don't know the half-life of it. We don't know how long
yeah,
it persists in the environment. They just keep on
yeah,
spraying it.
yeah, yeah.
Dr.
And
Joshua
there's
King.
no bioaccumulation, information on it at all. It doesn't know how long it stays in our body. They don't know how long the muscle tissues stay in there. They haven't done no research on it. It says
And
that in
this is
that.
probably why you didn't notice early on in the
Yeah, yeah,
property, because
yeah,
it had just started the program and it's accumulating in your soil, and then
yeah, yeah, yeah,
eventually
yeah,
the
yeah,
calves
yeah.
are getting problems, and then what they'll say is, oh well, there's some genetic problem with your calves.
That's right, and that
Right.
and that's what, yeah, and they just they don't even say that. They just allude and say, "Oh, it could be this, it could be that. You know, might be this or might be that." You
Well,
know,
some people could believe it, eventually,
and,
because what happens is the land gets more and more toxic, and then the animals all of a sudden exhibit signs of deformity and death, and then
yeah,
they think, oh, there's been a mutation in the
yeah,
genes,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
that's
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 right.
the issue.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
that's
you said
right.
you sent the letter with Dr. Joshua King, and I thought this was an interesting point. He actually
Yeah,
talked about non-toxic management methods of
yeah,
using steam, and I think you had a picture of yourself with that, but they don't
yeah.
see that as
I
the
don't
dump
recognise
department doesn't
it. So,
recognize
so
that.
it's not steam; it's hot water.
Oh, hot water, yep.
Yeah, hot. The method's using 90 to 95 just before steam. So they get very hot water, but steam does too much damage on the nest. So he wants not a lot of steam, not just hot water, so it doesn't do
Okay.
any nest. But let's just see here if I can. The other thing I wanted to say to you is another person, because that's very interesting too. That this is a fast machine here. I can bring that up.
Yeah, interesting with Dr. Joshua King saying in this letter, one of the specific issues of concern is the toxic prophylactic baiting is being conducted across the landscape, ignoring the reality of where fire ants are most likely to occur. The distribution of fire ants across the landscape is very predictable, and ignoring what is of their dispersal patterns and behavior during dispersal risks wasting time and resources. It just doesn't seem that they really care. To me, it seems that the they are they're determined to spread as much poison as possible. Every bit of poison is money. Whoever is making this poison is making a lot of money.
A lot of money, them helicopters, and that's the point that I make about the canopy areas and the treat areas, especially Talabudra, the Samson Valley incident that Sarah talks about on Mount Glorious and a few of the mountains up there. They're all treat areas, and the fire ants cannot establish a successful colony there. It's impossible, but yet the helicopters are still treating it. And what we're going to try and do is going to try and find a video showing that just to demonstrate that a bit, because it is quite
Yeah, I find it actually very disturbing that
yeah,
people are living under these conditions where they're literally under siege from helicopters and drones. And
here it is here. So I can share this video here. Let's see, share. I've got it up there now. That's it there. And these are all on my LinkedIn account. So you can see here. Just turn the sound. This is all trees here. It's impossible for fire ants to establish nests in that environment. Like they can't live in the shade, you know, like it's, so not only is it, it's not only can't they see the undergrowth waterways and this and that, you know, because there's all these things, it's the side of a mountain, so water runs off everywhere. The whole thing's a waterway, isn't it, when it rains? And there's even evidence to suggest that the shade makes it harder for the chemicals to decompose. They won't decompose in the shade either. And when it does rain, that just washes in the creeks and kills all the fish and yabbies and then gets in the cattle's drinking water. And, you know, they just don't know what they're doing. It's just ridiculous. But that's the sort of area that Josh King's referring to, is they shouldn't be doing it in them areas. It's just unnecessary because fire ants can't establish in that areas, you know. And the other interesting one, and all this is available online. I've got thousands of it if anyone's interested, but and I know you've done a few of it as well, but Connie Turner, I'll just shut that one down. Connie Turner was a big spokesperson. She was very critical of the program. She's been very critical for ages, but can you see that screenshot there?
Yep, I can see it. Yep.
Yeah, prophylactic spraying of growth regulators. So they call it growth regulators to minimise the. They don't like you to use the word poison. They want to try and minimise the word poison. So it's an insect growth regulator, and in fact, on the ABC, they say we're misinforming people by calling it a poison, but it is insecticide, which is part of a pesticide, which is a category of poison. But they've actually reworded it and took it out of the poison category in the therapeutic,
yes,
whatever it
prophylactic
is, you know,
treatment.
same as what they did with the redefinition of the word vaccine, you know, to suit their own thing.
Makes it sound so much more benign.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So this is what it is: small pieces of corn grit soaked in soybean. So that's what we're talking about. And when we say spraying, it's not literally a liquid. It's just these little corn grits. And the problem with corn grits is birds eat corn grits. They like corn grits, you know what I mean? So it's poisoning birds, and they're plucking it out of the ground as well. But so the word broad spectrum means it is not specific for fire ants, but all arthropods. And this is what she's saying. And this is what really frustrates me, is the program, a spokesperson for the program, they never name the person. A spokesman for the program says there are no non-target species affected by this treatment. They're saying none. And their own research suggests that the ants, and they actually studied 5 ants on local properties, but it's all arthropods. The study of 5 native ant species found they also picked up the bait. So it's not specific to fire ants, it's a broad spectrum. So any ant can grab this stuff, you know, which is quite interesting. So and this is what she's got here, and this is all her side. So there is, like you say, campaigns, and we have public community meetings, and she's a very spoken out. Dr. Connie Turney is a very spoken out person on the program, and she's been campaigning against it for years. And these are her slides.
It's very difficult to get this information out, and people need to really help us out, because we're fighting against this machine.
Yeah,
they've got all their propaganda and their administration. They're going to probably censor us for, you know, misinformation and disinformation.
Yeah, and they're the ones that are misinformation. It's really bizarre. But even on their own this is from their own documents. Over the past 10 years, various modifications to the standard corn and oil formulation and distance has been investigated to improve attractiveness for a wider range of ant species than just the original key target species. So they're saying in their own documentation that they've actually changed the formula so attractiveness for a wider range. The remaining 5 species or subspecies bring, so it affects green tree ants, meat ants, green head ants, black ants, and pale tyrant ants are native to Australia, and they're affecting them. You know what I mean? So that's a
I,
lie
mean,
in
I think,
itself.
yeah, and I think what happens is people, when you first started on this journey, you were
Yeah,
sprayed, but because there wasn't an immediate effect
yeah,
that
yeah,
seen, it seemed,
yeah,
oh, that's okay. And here
yeah,
people need to really realize that the effects of this is going to be seen in 3, 5, 10, 20 years time.
yeah, yeah.
But
There was some
especially
dogs.
the human health
There
side.
was some dogs and some pets that had instant effects. So some animals and pets, and the vet explains that walking on the chemicals on a recently treated park, and they lick their paws or whatever. And there's videos of it, and I've got the recordings there of vets saying that that causes poisoning, and it has killed a few animals, but they do show signs of spewing up and all the poison signs, and they get the blood test or whatever and shows increase in whatever it is. And there's a vet that talks about that as well. So you can get instant, and it's like anything. It's like not everyone's allergic to peanut butter. Some people have bigger effects than other things. It's the same with the animals and with the environment. So the effects of these poisons are determined by the environment, the weather, the susceptibility of the animals in the distribution zone, the exposures, the amount of exposures, the durations of exposure, so many variables. And every living creature is different. Same with humans. Every human has different reactions to different things. Like like I said, some people are allergic to peanut butter. You're not going to feed them teaspoons of bloody peanut butter if they're allergic to peanuts. You know what I mean? So it's really weird that they've got this
Yeah,
blanket
I mean, I just don't understand. Like, obviously, we do understand that they want to, poison the environment. But if they do want to manage, if they truly want to manage these fire ants, all they have to do is actually identify where they are
and
and
treat where
then
they are. You'd think
treat
that,
that
wouldn't
wherever
you?
they are. I mean,
Yeah,
this
yeah,
idea that you can just spray a massive area is
yeah,
just bordering on insanity. It's almost as though the lunatics have taken over the asylum, and we are trying to fight with common sense, and they're
yeah,
coming back with Looney Tune results, at
yeah,
us. And then
yeah,
we're the ones that have been called for misinformation, disinformation. And
yeah, yeah,
clearly the evidence is on the ground that
yeah,
your
yeah,
animals have died. There are cats and dogs that have died. We
yeah.
don't really know at the moment, like what farm animals perhaps have. We haven't, like,
A lot of
are you
people
hearing this in
haven't
the?
contributed to ants yet, to the bait yet, and in the cattle, like my cattle went to full term, and we euthanized it at 6 weeks. But a lot of cattle that are exposed to repeated exposure, like you said, this is over 5 years. My cattle were exposed to it, so a lot of people haven't had that exposure. I've been exposed to it for that long because there was a nest at the USQ about 8 kilometres away. So they've done an 8 kilometre radius of that, and that's how I got involved in a lot earlier. But this eradication program only started for everyone, I think, late last year. So it's all new to a lot
Okay.
of people. So I've got a bit of an insight into what could happen in the future. But a lot of people probably won't attribute miscarriages in the cattle straight away, but they will eventually. It just
Yep.
takes time, like you said, of bioaccumulation. And there's no research to say it doesn't. There's no research that says there's no research at all done on bioaccumulation of these chemicals. So they don't know. But as Connie says here, by killing native ants, mass pest applications reduce competition burdens, therefore enabling fire ants to invade more quickly than they would in the absence of management. So that's another expert saying the same thing as Dr. King, and newly mated queens select open human altered ecosystems for founding new colonies, and by landing in distributed habitats with its fire ant native population, newly mated fire queens increase their chances of successful colonies. So what they're doing is not only not working, but it's helping fire ants spread quicker. This is the problem. It's just mind-boggling. But there's lots of
But then they
so
can
there's
spray
lots
more
of
chemicals, Trevor,
yeah, yeah,
if it spreads, there's no accountability whatsoever. For example,
yeah,
your area
yeah,
should be like the canary in the coal mine.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You
And
they
not
got
only yeah,
when the department got a report from you,
yeah,
everything alarm bells should have gone off. This is
yeah.
a normal thing.
And that's what I would have thought would have happened. And I'm just so surprised that I've come across so much hate and so much opposition and so much. I would have thought that. That's what I thought. I got to do. Let's get to the bottom of this. We'll stop this and work it out. and maybe, but yeah, it's just been complete opposite, full steam ahead, regardless, push forward, you know. So yeah, these are Connie's slides, and the interesting thing about this one here is it's not just the active ingredients. So they're talking about so she talks about the letter there as well from Josh King. But the interesting thing, we're talking about the active ingredients. They've done research on the active ingredients, pyriproxyfen and S-methoprene. But what Connie says here in her slides is that she talks about the degradation of them, so they don't degrade, especially in shade. They don't over time. You talk about that. In fact, it says on the actual documentation of the product that no work's been done on this. But what happens is when it does degrade, Connie says it degrades into products that are even worse than the active ingredient.
Oh my goodness.
You know, so that she talks about metabolic ticks. So I don't know much about it, and this is all scientist stuff. So
Yeah.
pyriproxyfen degrades into 6 metabolics, most of which persist for more than 30 days in the soil. So metabolic C, E, and F cause toxicity to soil enzymes. You know, so all this is not told about. So you're only focusing on pyriproxyfen and S-methoprene, but when they break down, they create even bigger problems for people. And there's no research done on that at all.
Yeah, and I kind of think when you're talking about the animals walking barefoot on the ground and getting poisoned, I was thinking about all those humans who are now going out and doing grounding, you know,
Yeah,
for their
yeah,
health.
healing on the thing.
And of course, there's no guidance also, even say, for example, people going out and with shoes coming into the house and you're bringing in all those poisons into the household if you don't leave your shoes inside.
And kids and babies go to the parks and not so much warning people. And yeah, you know, kids, they put shit stuff in their mouth all day long. You know, even little children, don't they? You know, so they might. But even with us, the helicopters putting it on the roof and going into your tank water, you know, all these problems it's just ridiculous. But yeah, it's not just the active ingredients; it's these other ingredients that break down the degraded components are even worse than the active ingredient. And this is what some of the stuff that Connie talks about, and there's videos of her talking about it. She's better.
And they
should
be,
me, you know?
They should be testing for all this stuff. I mean,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
spray, right?
Yeah, yeah.
There should be a surveillance system where
Yeah.
they go along and they test for the concentrations and the metabolites afterwards. What that are persisting in the environment, are they above safety levels? Or are they expecting us, the public, to start, you know, crowdfunding?
I had to fund my own
scientists?
tests on my own water after they poisoned it, and it's interesting. It's interesting that you know, they talk about it's an acceptable risk. You know, they deem it's acceptable risk, but they're not shareholders in my company. They don't own the cattle. It's not their livelihood. It's not their commercial operations. They haven't got the authority to make an assessment on what is acceptable and what is not acceptable risk in my commercial operations. But this is where they're a little bit deluded in their thinking. They feel just because they've got a permit that they can do it. But as we've already established, the APVMA only regulate up to the point of sale. It's up to the government then to look at the Biosecurity Act and look at the Human Rights Act, look at the Property Rights Act, and look at the Criminal Act, because some people are even claiming they're breaching criminal code. You know what I mean? But it's up to the government to make sure that they're distributing this stuff in a way that's consistent to all them standards. You know, but they're not. They're just randomly.
What are people doing on the ground? Like, how are they able to? What is them with all that you've done with your activism? What do you think right now is the way forward? How can this be stopped?
Well, I've invested in that fire ant suit machine, Dr. King's technology, and I've been promoting that, and I've been actually been in the suppression zone treating fire ants and recording it, and that's debunking some of their propaganda about hot water treatment not working. So that's something that I'm doing. Other things I'm doing is I've set up a advocacy thing where people that are getting intimidated and that can nominate. I've got a counselling company to act as their advocates in saying no. So we've also sent letters off to the police commissioner because they said they're getting police to escort them onto the property, which is another lie. The police are there to keep the peace. They're not there. They can't walk on your property without a warrant anyway, but we're trying to get that established. There are people just saying no and having their right to say no. So we're trying to get people educated that say within the Biosecurity Act, you can say no. There is a reasonable excuse, and there's plenty of them. There's plenty of reasonable excuses. Even that one about killing the native ants is going to make it more possible for fire ants to invade my property. That's a reasonable excuse. But many people think that not having fire ants on your property is a reasonable excuse not to spray for fire ants, and I believe that's a reasonable excuse as well. So it's all about more about education, I suppose, about talking about what their rights are, and advocating for people and having these community events. There's lots of My Place community events around, and they're quite welcoming to these sort of conversations. But also Sanford Valley residents who were poisoned in the lake, they've got big community events. Tallabudra and Currumbin down south, the eco village down there, they've had community events. We're starting to get some professionals, doctors talking out, like we got Dr. Joshua King's letter. I'm trying to get people to read that. Connie Turner's, just trying to get some of Connie Turner's work out there on LinkedIn. I got a petition, a Parliament-sponsored petition now, and over 2,000 people have signed that.
We'll put that in the link.
Yeah, so I've got that
page people can do.
Yeah, and my YouTube channel. So I've been literally doing this full time. I haven't really done, because I used to do Who Are We podcast, where I talk to people about their personality and talk to people about challenges and overcoming things, basically identity for mental health. I haven't been doing any of that. This literally has consumed all my spare time or all my business endeavors. So to fund it, I've been like selling signs, gate signs saying, just say no, and distributing pamphlets and that sort of stuff, and getting support that way. People are paying for my commercial treatment of fire ants by not chemically treating. So people are actually paying $100 an hour to have their fire ants treated with my machine. So there's a few things there that we're doing. So basically we're just talking to guys, talking to people like you, and just getting people aware that what they're doing is wrong, harmful. So it's not just.
But are they able to? So you've been able to stop them coming on your property now?
Yeah, they haven't come back on my property. So they done my neighbour's property and that neighbour's property, and they didn't do my property. But the problem that I face is, unless I have a holistic approach of not poisoning, because the creek's waters run into my dam, you know what I mean? So if there's poison distributed next door and it rains and it washes into the waterways, then it contributes to the toxic poisoning of my cows, and that's what's happening. So accumulation of toxic poisons in the cow through bioaccumulation, which they don't know anything about. There's no research done on that at all, but it can affect embryos and it can affect fetus development during the pregnancy stage of a cow. And that can lead to more miscarriages, and if the calf does go to full term, it's born with defective kidneys, defective livers that, from my experience, takes 6 weeks to die. Die a painful, horrible death of horrible life of 6 weeks. It's happened to me twice.
Yeah.
So, and I think acknowledging that sort of stuff, and acknowledging that, and at the moment I can throw a crab pot in my dam and I don't catch any crab. There's no yabbies there anymore. There's no mussels there. There's no fish in my dam. It's just dead, barren. So it's really toxic to water life and aquatic life, and acknowledging that and acting on it. So I've got to pay to get that restocked now, and all these costs that I've got to endure. So it's affecting my cash flow. It's affecting. I've got to test the water every time it rains because I don't know where they've been or what they're doing. So it's having a big negative effect. But not just that, but people are getting stressed out about, when are the fire ant people going to come? Because if you're not home, they're just going to come and poison your land. And people go to work, and often the male goes to work, and the poor wife's at home by herself, and she's trying to deal with these 6 big blokes bullying their way onto a property, saying it's mandatory. So we're trying to.
Because they don't seek permission first. They just
no, they just waltz. If you're not home, they'll just waltz on your property and just do it. Yeah, that's
So what
they
about,
do.
do people put up signage, no trespass signs or?
Yeah, no trespassing signs, and some people have done that and tried to and recorded it. And there's this big, sovereign union thing where they, say it 3 times or whatever. Because there was that case in COVID where that police went past the thing, and she got $18,000 or something. There's a president sent, that was in New
Yep.
South Wales. So some people are trying to set up that trap for them, and this and that. So there are lots of people campaigning now, and
It's
it's
about
only a
critical
matter
mass.
of time. Yeah, it's only a matter of time, but they're like a Terminator. It's just, they're just relentless regardless, and they try to bog you down. That's why we've had to do proactive stuff. They try to bog you down. Like, no one would be as persistent of what I've done to go through the paperwork and go through the adverse reporting and send all them emails and that sort of stuff. But that I've done. But I feel that we're getting the word out there. There's enough people doing enough stuff. And a lot of these professionals are starting to talk out now, and we've got some videos of them talking out, and it's but it is very disappointing that the government is the biggest missing representation of the truth in regards to, especially non-target. Like, it's a known fact that it does harm other ants. At least that's
Yeah.
scientifically
I mean,
proven. Does it?
they're pro-environment,
Yeah.
in the
And,
public
and anything
space.
with that, anything with that aqua environment, anything that lives in the water, it's known that it does kill all that stuff. But yet, when they report it in the newspaper, on the news, they say there's no non-target problems, which is a complete and utter lie. And this is why people have got no trust or faith in the government anymore, because it's them that are doing the misinformation.
And they're not listening to the people. I mean, ultimately, this is not how democracy, this is not how society is supposed to work. I mean, we have these systems in place that, sure, people need to work on pests. Biosecurity is a real problem, but there are, proper checks and balances that should come into play. And I think what your paper trail has demonstrated today is just how the absurdity of the system and the absolute corruption of the system, and the people involved who are complicit in the harm, thinking that they're just going to get away with it, and that they will, but ultimately someone's going to hold them to account at some point, and this is why I guess they don't want to sign letters, because when they put their name on a letter, they're still held to account. It doesn't matter what the title that they have right now, they're personally accountable. They're personally accountable for these them of that you, because you're a small community, and that's the only way I think that the people who are working for the government will actually understand that they can't hide behind a government job. And
and I feel that's what they're trying to do, is just literally hide behind that, hide behind an anonymous wall, and make these decisions. So
thank you everyone for joining us today. Unfortunately, the transmission got cut towards the end, so I'm just doing this post-production. Trevor Hold can be found on LinkedIn, and we will also be putting the important links to information on our website, healthallianceaustralia.org. You'll find the interview both on YouTube and Rumble. Do share it around, subscribe, share and comment here if you can. This helps with the algorithm. And also send an email or directly message it to friends and family who may be affected by these poisons. We do need to get this story out, and hopefully there will be more community consultation. We will get this programmed stopped, and that is ultimately the end goal of all of this.